Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. Today is 27th November 2023. My name is TSV Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. This is my spiritual vlog on YouTube. Hardan, 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 Haribol, TSV Nectar, NECTAR, Nectar. In this particular vlog, in all my previous videos, we have been trying to discuss about the knowledge and information that we have gleaned through the study of spiritual books, scriptures, contemplation on the material universe, and meditation on the spiritual universe. This particular video in this vlog is no exception to that rule. In fact, it is a mere continuation of all that has been happening in my previous videos. Kindly subscribe to this vlog and press the bell icon so that I may keep reminding you of all my previous, present, and future videos. So let us continue with the topic of discussion for today's video. In the past few videos, we have been trying to discuss and analyze a particular term that plays a perennial part in the life and psyche of every human living entity, whether male or female, in a lifetime in this society and material world. This particular term is known as mind. We all know by now that this particular mind, which is in subtle form and is invisible to the naked eyes of the gross body of any living entity in the society, is subtle by nature and is considered to be the most powerful instrument that drives this human chariot called the living entity, whether male or female, in this lifetime in the society. This mind plays the part of an engine of a mechanical vehicle or machinery. As a machine, as a engine is the most important instrument driving a particular vehicle or machinery. Similarly, it is this subtle mind that drives this living entity during the course of any living lifetime in this society and material world. Just like when the engine is absent, that particular vehicle or machinery gets redundant and retires into just scrap value. Thus, even when this mind disappears from the life of a living entity, then the redundant value of this particular living entity is only scrap. In such a case, what happens is that this particular living entity, whether male or female, drops his or her gross body dead or ineffective right at that moment on this terra firma, and this mind, along with the three layers of subtle body of that living entity, melts into the space till these are all born again in another physical form in this material world. This process has been going on and on in every chain of infinite births and deaths of every human living entity, whether male or female, in this particular society in the material world. It is this mind that we are trying to discuss about and analyze to find out how complex a machinery it is and how it works. In this process, we bifurcated the complete multitude of human living entities of a particular lifetime in this society into three parts. One part is the mundane, vegetative, zombie like, moving in a trance type multitude of mass, which is that of the common human being. This comprises of 74% of that multitude. The remaining 25% are further divided into two. 20% are those who gravitate towards and worship the negative forces already present in this material world, and they are happy living in the company of like minded living entities. The third are the cream de la cream or chosen ones of the remaining 5% who are positively material or positively spiritual or both. And these are the people who are the ultimate living entities who crave for self realization, liberation, and ultimate deliverance to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this process, while analyzing the individual mind of every living entity, we discussed about several case histories to vouch for our theory on mind. In that process, at present, we are trying to analyze the minds of those who are worshipping the negative forces and why or how they come to that level of understanding in this particular material world. Is it possible that they themselves regret gravitating towards or worshipping this negative force, or are they genuinely happy that they belong to this category? This is what we are trying to analyze. In this process, we discussed about one particular person called Hermann Goering, who was the right hand man of none other than Adolf Hitler, the architect of Second World War and the Chancellor of Germany during the 1934 to 1945 period. We also tried to analyze the mind of this particular gentleman called Adolf Hitler. By now, we know why Adolf Schicklgruber became Adolf Hitler. Now we will proceed further. Adolf Hitler had officially changed his name from Adolf Schicklgruber to Adolf Hitler. He was totally frustrated that the Jewish community of Germany was successful all around, while the genuine Germans are going to the grind in the society, or so he thought. Actually, it was not the fact. The fact was that talent is always open only to the deserving ones, and it is these talented people who succeed in the society regardless of their caste, creed, community, race, or color. But at that time, this young man with hot blood called Adolf Hitler could not realize this, and he was in the company of equally disgruntled youth of the German kind in Austria or Vienna at that time. Vienna is the capital of Austria. There is one English proverb: you are judged by the company you keep. Whosoever is the person or the force that you spend your maximum time with, carves or designs your own psyche according to his or her thinking. If you are with negative forces and in the company of negatively minded people, you also sooner or later become negative. But if you choose positively inclined people as your company, you will certainly become positive one day or the other. The best company is yourself and your lonely self, where you can look within yourself and find the localized Paramatma within you. Localized Paramatma is the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is out to guide you to success and self realization forever without expecting anything in return. If any individual living entity, whether male or female, learns to look within himself or herself and meditate on the super soul or the supreme personality of Godhead in the form of the localized Paramatma, then sooner or later this living entity begins treading the path towards self realization, liberated from these repeated cycle of birth and death, and the final deliverance to the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a mature, fully experienced, evolved spirit soul. So let us continue our discussion about Adolf Hitler. This guy was already distraught that he was the son of the illegitimate son of a wealthy Jewish gentleman called Schicklgruber. Hitler cast away his surname as Schicklgruber and adopted the maiden name of his own mother, that was Heidler, which he transformed into Hitler. It was the period of the First World War between 1914 and 1919. Hitler had nowhere to go, so he, as an able bodied young man, offered to join the German army at the time for this First World War. Hitler became a soldier or corporal in the German army, where he fought alongside other Germans during this war, in which Germany lost royally. This made this man more and more frustrated. His warped mind decided that it was because of the same Jews that Germany had lost this First World War. Being a person who nourished his grudges, Hitler remembered this insult in the European theater and wanted to do something about it. Back in Vienna, high and dry after the war, he and his like minded youth from Germany joined together to form a party which tried to stand for the elections in Austria and Vienna. At that time, Hitler and his group indulged in lots of demonstrations, protests, violent fights, brawls, fight with the army, etc. In that process, in the year 1934, there was a push or a coup d'etat engineered by Hitler and his men, in which they tried to overthrow the existing government. This is how the mind of a negatively inclined person works. Hitler was not satisfied with his own status as a commoner in Germany. Instead, he tried to wrestle control from the hands of the existing Chancellor Mr. Hindenburg of Germany. In that process, there was a shootout in which the police killed or maimed many of the protesters. One of them was none other than Hermann Goering, of whom we have already discussed. Hitler was arrested and put behind bars after a trial. But by that time, Hitler, because of his demagogue attitude, had become very famous with his own ilk in Germany and Austria. Hitler spent around 2 years in prison, where he wrote a very warped, frustrated, and negatively inclined autobiography of his own called Mein Kampf. This particular book would have very forgivable, and very negative results on the psyche of the human population or the German population of that period. In fact, it was one of the roots of the Second World War that was to happen in the year 1939 and was engineered by none other than Adolf Hitler. Hitler's mind had become a very warped thanks to not only his evil mind but also because of a particular type of drug that he had begun consuming at that period out of frustration, anger, pain, physical pain, mental pain, and sorrow. This warped his mind even further. Anyway, it is mentioned that when he was at the helm of the German government and was trying to steer Germany towards victory during the Second World War, one doctor, under the pretext of giving him vitamin injections, gave him a malt or a improvised type of cocaine or heroin, which was a drug which negatively influenced his brain. As a result of this particular brain in the gross body of Adolf Hitler selected only those vibrations sent by his mind that were suitable for him and his own people in Germany. That was precisely the reason why he began suffering from delusions of grandeur. Hitler had already started a second world war against against Great Britain and France. Now he tried to achieve the impossible by invading that formidable force called Russia. Now we will take a detour. In Germany, there was one another person who was at the helm of the in Russia during that period. There was another person who was at the helm of the Russian government called Joseph Stalin. This Joseph Stalin, who was Adolf Hitler's arch rival during this Second World War, was no different in upbringing than Adolf Hitler. Joseph Stalin's father was a cobbler and an alcoholic who used to abuse him and his mother physically and mentally as a child, and Joseph Stalin had to go through a lot of physical and mental torture in the hands of that alcoholic father. He also gravitated towards the disgruntled youth of Georgia and Russia during that period, and the leader of the whole bunch of youth was none other than Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov alias Lenin. Lenin had a right hand intellectual called Leon Trotsky. Leon Trotsky was of the same age as Joseph Stalin, but alas, Leon Trotsky was more intelligent, more well informed, more trustworthy, and more capable than Joseph Stalin during this period. To crown it all, Leon Trotsky was a Jew. This made Joseph Stalin hate Jews left, right, and center, just like Adolf Hitler hated Jews of Austria, Germany, and Europe. I wanted to mention this to tell you how the minds of those who worship the negative forces works. It is full of unwanted and baseless prejudice against a particular community instead of thinking or understanding like the people of that particular community. We must remember that we all are human beings from different communities and we all have several similarities which we must take into consideration while leading our life. The more positive your mind is, the better it works in that direction and the more successful positively your own life becomes. It is the 5% of the society which belongs to this category of positively thinking people in the society. The 75% are just mundane, zombie like people who are vegetating and are happy to remain like that without thinking about their own ideas, views, opinions, etc., or without any purpose in life. It is the 20% negative forces in the society who have a warped view of communities, creeds, races, colors, prejudice, revenge, vendetta, war, violence, demonstrations, etc., which are detrimental to the overall progress of the multitude in the society. Anyway, we know by now how the mind of two like minded negative people works, though they don't have anything else in common except the fact that they are both humans who hated one community called Jews. Adolf Hitler lost this war only because not only was he prejudicial towards Jews, but also because he genuinely thought that he belonged to a superior race called Hardan folk and that others, especially the Russians, belonged to an inferior force called the Untermenschen. Stalin, who was already disgruntled, was stung to the quick because of this prejudice from Adolf Hitler, and this resulted in his wreaking complete havoc on Austria, Germany, and the axis of the Second World War during this Second World War. Because of the evil, warped mind of two individuals from two different countries, there was a lot of casualty of lives and property all over the world, and lot of innocent people had to die in the hands of each other because of the evil thoughts of the mind of these two people. We must take a leaf out of the lives of both Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler to understand how the whole society or the multitude of society in a lifetime suffers because of the negative thoughts of two human beings who are actually just like us, but who have been possessed by the dark, negative forces existing in this material world. This is all I wanted to talk about in this particular video. Kindly let me know what you think of my talk on this particular subject. Please give me your own expert views, thoughts, opinions, and ideas so that I may blend everything together for the sake of this society. Before concluding, let me remind you that I am also a published author with Amazon Kindle and paperback. I write on spiritualism, fiction, and assorted subjects. Spiritualism happens to be my favorite subject. Till we meet in my next video, it is good morning from TSV Raghavan.